Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Guitar Solo Analysis, Tip, Tricks, and Theory. I haven't done an episode of this in quite some time and I've been meaning to get back to it. There's just so many things going on. And today I wanted to take a deep dive look into one of my all-time favorite solos, and that's Alex Lifeson's classic, incredible solo on Rush's classic song, Limelight. Now, a lot of folks might say, wow, that's an easy solo, you know, there's nothing really technically crazy about it. There's no ridiculously fast shredding or any of those types of things. But I'll tell you, this is actually an extremely interesting solo to take a deep dive into. And it's not as easy to play as some might like to think. And the key word here is phrasing. And the way that Alex phrases this solo is not only really beautiful and wonderfully musical, but also kind of difficult to mimic. And I've seen Rush play a number of times live. I have lost count of how many times I've seen them. And I don't think he ever really played it, precisely the same way as he played it in the studio, probably because it's actually a difficult thing to do. He probably improvised this in the studio and just came out with this gorgeous piece that's really stood the test of time. So without further ado, let's dive right in and let's take a look at some of the ways that I approach playing this solo. Not to get it to sound exactly like Alex, but to really capture the overall feel that Alex had in the original. So here we are over in Guitar Pro 7. I am playing my Vigier Excalibur guitar, and the sounds you're going to hear today are my classic 80s number 4 preset from the Line 6 Marketplace, which was actually designed to kind of have an Alex Lifeson-esque quality to it. So I hope it works well for this. So here we have my tab that I whipped up this morning before shooting this video. The first thing we want to always do with these is to figure out what the chord progression is we're playing over. What's the harmony? Now, the interesting part about this is there's no rhythm guitar. There's some chord pads played on a synth, and Geddy is really kind of implying the chords on the bass. But for the most part, what tends to happen is after this initial bar leading into the solo, which kind of technically maybe starts here where it changes time signatures, which we'll talk about in a minute, they basically go through a 4-chord cycle. G sharp minor for a bar, E for a bar, F sharp major for a bar, and then G sharp minor for a bar before repeating that. And that cycle basically stays the same. So those chords are all from the key of B major / G minor. And if you think about a 1, 4, 5, 6 chord progression in the key of B major, you would have B as your number 1 chord, E as your number 4 chord, F sharp major as your number 5 chord, G sharp minor as your number 6. So it's really just a 6, 4, 5 chord progression. And really, from a harmonic standpoint, Alex really doesn't stray outside of the G sharp minor scale. And why would he? But what's going to be important is figuring out where he lands on certain notes and maybe why he lands on certain notes in conjunction with the chords that he's playing. So let's dive right into this. Now, one thing you're going to notice is that the first bar is 4/4, but the rest of the solo is in 3/4. And I'll tell you, Neil's drumming on this was really spectacular. He kind of plays with the time throughout it while Geddy keeps grooving in that 3/4 time. There's some points where Neil goes, it seems a couple bars, 2-3 bars on 2/4 time, kind of over top of that 3/4, which is really interesting stuff. And I think that's why a lot of folks playing the guitar solo have a hard time to kind of keep the timing. And we're going to really focus on the phrasing today. So that first note that he plays, coming out of the chorus where the whole band stops, what's really important about that is that measure is 4/4. Then it switches to 3/4 when the band comes back in. And this is where it gets interesting. Now, some folks are going to want to play this, and I've seen a lot of folks teach this by playing the B note on the 3rd string at the 4th fret. And when he goes to this natural harmonic, they tap it 12 frets higher before dipping with the bar. I've kind of always played it with the open B string just to get a little more sustain out of it. And then I tap at the 12th fret. Either way is fine. I've notated it with the open string. So really all we're doing is we're playing a B note. Now, if you look at that B note over the G sharp minor, well, that's the minor 3rd interval from G sharp. So that works really nicely. And then as the chord changes to E and he's still hanging on to that tap natural harmonic, the B note becomes the 5th interval of the E major scale. So we're playing chord tones all throughout that. So the thing about this though is to know where to tap that harmonic. And if you look here, we have 4 beats in that measure of 4/4, and then we have another 2 beats where we just tie that open ringing note. So we're actually going to hit the harmonic on beat number 3 in the first measure of 3/4. So it would really be like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, right? And then we hang on to that for another full measure while the chord changes to E. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, while we kind of dive that note down. So that's the thing about this. The way I've notated this, I've tried to be as accurate as possible with where he's hitting certain notes in time. So if you want to practice this and develop the proper feel, count it out like I just did. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And just do that a bunch of times and you'll get very comfortable with that feel and you won't have to count it after a while. The next note, what you're going to see is as he dips this harmonic down, while the bar is depressed, he uses that to hit and slide into the 4th fret F sharp note on the 4th string. So that would be like this. And maybe some don't even want to do the slide. I've always kind of gone, but again, who knows, maybe not. Maybe it would be better to just go. That works really nicely too. So maybe we'll leave that slide out. And we're just going to dip and come right back up into that note. And that's shown in Guitar Pro with these kind of dips. Now I have a -8 here. It's just what Guitar Pros, the most they allow you to go down before the note comes back up. But again, we're worried about timing here. So once we hit this F sharp note, which again is amazing, right? He's on the F sharp chord. He lands right on the tonic or the root note just to really solidify that chord change. And he hangs on to that for the full 3 beats of that measure and then another 2 beats of the following measure. So the timing on that coming out of it, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, before then moving up to a G sharp note, which that's the chord that we're going to be dealing with for these next 2 measures. So you can really see how Alex is outlining the chords even in the melody of his solo. So we're going to land on this 6th fret on beat 3. We're going to hold it for 3, beat 1, and then half a beat again. So this would be counted 3 and 1 and 2, and then we would land on this C sharp note on the and of beat number 2. So from that F sharp it would be So I found that that's the best way to really practice that so you can develop a feel for it. Just count it out. Put a metronome on, slower, just really trying to pinpoint where those changes happen, right? 2, 3, 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and... Now again, about the notes, what we're having here, like we said, we're on the G sharp minor chord, and we're on the G sharp note. Now he then switches to, while he's still the G sharp minor chord is being outlined, to a C sharp note, which would actually be the 11th of a G sharp minor chord, which is kind of nice. G sharp minor at 11. And then very simply when the chord changes to E, he slides down to a B and a G sharp, which are the 5 and the 3 of the E major. So really outlining the chords really nicely, and that's the neat way to think about it. So knowing that we start on beat 1, we hold on to this initial B in the beginning where I'm pointing here for 2 beats. We tap the harmonic on beat 3, dive bomb that, hanging on to that for a full 3 beats through the next measure. Actually a full 4 beats if we count them all together, but 3 beats of the next measure. Landing on the F sharp note for 5 beats over the 2 measures. On measure 5 here that I have notated, on beat number 3, we move up to our G sharp. We hold that, and on and of beat 2, we hit our C sharp. And then on beat 1, we hit the B note, and on the and of beat 1, we get to the F sharp note. And it all sounds like this. And then we hang on to that G sharp note from and of beat 1 all the way through to the next measure for another 2 beats. So that final thing would be 1 and 2, 1, I'll dip it more, 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and. Now at that point, we're gonna start transitioning up to this F sharp note up here. Now go figure, we're on the chord, F sharp, and Alex hits that F sharp note. Just for 1 beat, and then he hits it again and sustains it out over top of the G sharp minor tonality. Now you might say, well, why would it be on an F sharp? Well, if we think of what an F sharp is, that's the minor 7th. So really, with the G sharp minor chord playing and Alex focusing on the chord tone F sharp, that would be a chord tone in a G sharp minor 7th chord. So again, beautifully thought out. He really kind of focused a lot on tonics and root notes in the first part of the solo. Now he seems to be going out to some more color notes and adding a minor 7th here. So beautiful, beautiful stuff. So he lands on right here on beat 3. Now, the thing about this, the transition to that note, there's string noise, and I almost kind of like, I'll try to rake the strings while I'm muting them. It's going to be very hard to mimic exactly what Alex did there, simply because, you know, again, he's probably never going to get it exactly the same way again. And I really don't get too concerned about that. I'm more concerned with the phrasing and getting that feel that he had into it instead of worrying about all those little details. So once we get here, we play on 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So again, you notice he's holding a lot of these for a full bar and then 2 more beats of the next bar. So 5 beats in total, which would be counted, you know, when we hit this the first time. 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. And by thinking of it like this and how it's notated, we're going to be able to pinpoint exactly where to play those to get the phrasing right, and then it'll just become very natural after a while. So on the G sharp minor again now, he, after holding on to this minor 7th note, he then adds in a B note, which just happens to be the minor 3rd. So another chord tone of the G sharp minor chord before heading to the E chord where he hits on, you know, this B note ends up on beat 3. But on beat number 1, when he plays the E chord, he's now landing on an F sharp note, which would be the 9th of an E major chord. So he's kind of like an E major add 9 chord. So beautiful. 2 beats there. Now the phrasing of this next part is quite simple because he's right on downbeats all the way through. So it's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, and. So you'll notice he's up on the F sharp, stays on that add 9 note of the E major by going to it an octave lower. When we switch to the F sharp major chord, now he goes to a B, F sharp, and a B flat. Now this is interesting because the B note would actually be the 4th or an added 11th to the tonic F sharp and then back to a B flat, which is actually the 3rd of an F sharp chord. So before ending up down here on a C sharp to a G sharp, okay, and again, from that add 11th right back to the tonic of the G sharp minor chord he lands on, okay? So that whole section there, once he gets to here, so hopefully everything's clear so far. Now this is a very interesting part. So what he basically outlines here is a little B major 7th arpeggio in a way. If you look at the notes here, the A sharp, B, D sharp, and F sharp. But instead of doing the obvious thing like what I just did there, he kind of plays with time, now introducing triplets. I love the sound of the way he uses these triplets. So he plays an eighth note on end of beat 3 in this bar here before starting the chord cycle over again. And he does a B, A sharp, F sharp. Then he kind of goes back to the A sharp, B, D sharp. Then he repeats those two little cycles again. B, A sharp, F sharp, A sharp, B, D sharp. So it's basically this here. 12th fret, 11th fret, 14th fret. 11th fret, 12th fret, 11th fret. Repeat that. So, but in the time of 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. But the starting note is what's important. So we're here on 1 and 2 and 3 and... So again, just slowing this down and going 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. Really, really interesting stuff. Now, you might say, well, what's going on tonality-wise there? Well, if you think about it, we have this little B major 7th arpeggio, but it's being superimposed over a G sharp minor chord. So you might go, wait, that doesn't make sense. But it does, because the notes in here, some of them are chord tones of G sharp minor, such as the B, such as the D sharp. The two other notes though, the A sharp and the F sharp is that minor 7th we discussed earlier, and the A sharp is the 9th. So really what we have here is we're, by superimposing this little B major 7th arpeggio over the G sharp minor, we actually have a G sharp minor 9th chord. That's the tonality of it. So very interesting stuff. So if we think of it as being, which fits beautifully into this G sharp minor scale pattern right here. So that's the tonality of what's going on there. And then it switches, as he's doing that, to an E major chord. And again, the B note is just going to be the 5th interval of the E major. But we're going to have a D sharp. So you might say, well, what is that going to be? Well, that's going to be the major 7th interval when applied to an E major chord. So really, what they've done here is added in a major 7th tonality to the E major. And then there's also this A sharp note, which is really interesting because that's actually going to create almost like a Lydian tonality. So a sharp 11th. Okay, so they've added, it's a major 7th with a sharp 11 tonality if you really wanted to get into it, as that chord changes from G sharp minor to E over top of. Then he lands on that C sharp note, which ends up being the 6th interval of the E major chord before heading back to these two notes. So that whole lick there and if you notice, back to the F sharp note where the chord changes to F sharp. Now this is where the phrasing gets kind of neat and a little more haphazard. So we're going to play this F sharp note, hold it for a beat and a half. So the timing is going to be 1 and 2. Before doing this phrasing, 1 and 2 and I've seen this played so wrong by so many folks, even trying to teach this. And they'll do things like, you know, he doesn't do a trill, he plays just a couple notes. So it's 1 and 2 and, 1 and 2 and then you just do a quick hammer on a 16th note on the G sharp note, pull back off to the F sharp note, and then you hold that for 3/4 of a beat to finish that measure. 1 and 2. And again, as the chord changes to G sharp minor, we land on that G sharp. Start diving that note right away before pulling off to the open G string. Now you might say open G against the G sharp minor is going to be really kind of maybe a strange note to put in there. Because you're diving the bar, by the time you pull off to that, it's going to be more just noise, right? So it's going to be something along these lines. And you take advantage of the bar being down to hit your 19th fret up here, your B note on your high E string, which again, you go on a G sharp minor chord, right? On a B note, well, that's our minor third again. So he's just nailing these chord tones beautifully. And this, such a well thought out solo or well improvised solo, however it came about. So that whole thing, 1 and 2. And then you dip back into that B. And then you hang on to that B note for the full bar plus a beat and a half of the next measure. So we have 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and... Okay, so that's the timing again. Really count it through so you know where those switches are if you're having trouble hitting them and getting the feel right. 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and... And that's where we start bending this 16th fret up and he gets these beautiful soaring notes going. We're bending that G sharp up to an A sharp, which is just the third interval of the F sharp chord we're on, so it makes sense he's bending into a chord tone now, right? So 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and... We hold that note. If you notice, there's these straight lines on the 16th fret, and we don't keep hitting this. We hang on to it for 3 and 1 and 2 and 3. We hit it again on the and of beat 3, and then again on 1 of the next measure. 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and... Okay, before running into this little fun run that he does. Again, it's going to be triplets, but it may not be where you think. The triplet doesn't seem to start on the 14th fret. It doesn't go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It doesn't do that. The timing is interesting here. So we have this bend. The start of the triplet is actually on the G sharp note on the 16th fret. So that 14th fret is just a quick, as we release that bend, a quick 16th note. And the triplets only go from here. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. And the reason I said 1, 2 is because that goes to 2 8th notes, okay? So it's a different feel, and a lot of people don't get this right. So we have to have the 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then 1 and before we do that final bend, okay? So you'll notice, well, sorry about that last bend. You'll notice that those last two notes are no longer triplets. I slow them down. Okay, really interesting stuff. And all it's doing is climbing up a G minor scale. Before ending all the way up there on that D sharp note, okay? Well, it's bent up to the D sharp note, which is going to be on the F sharp chord. Now there's also going to be a rhythm to how we play that last bend as well. If you notice, we have 2 beats of it, so it's 2 and 3 and, then we start hitting it again. 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 1, 2, 3, and then a triplet. And a lot of people play this wrong as well. So it's going to be 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and a 1, 2, 3. And then after that, he just lets that sing and he kind of hits it. I say kind of more randomly. I wasn't going to go figure out all of that because what happens after this bar here of the G sharp minor, right here, they go back to this little part. And that clean guitar comes back in. So really, that's the whole solo. But if you notice now why I was saying the phrasing is so important, nailing those triplets and starting the triplets in the right spot, making sure where these notes change so that we finally get Kept it on the neck pickup. Didn't sound too bad, actually. So that's the whole solo. A little bit of information with the harmonic ideas, a lot of information about the phrasing. Not a difficult solo note-wise, but a difficult solo to phrase properly. So I hope some folks enjoyed that kind of deeper look at maybe some of the intricacies. Now, I'm not even saying that I've nailed this exactly like Alex. A lot of this has to do with the specific tone he was playing with, and probably little accidental things that happened as he was playing it, which, like I said, I've never heard him even play it precisely the same way, which is wonderful because, you know, it is nice to hear that variety. But that actual solo on the album, on the Moving Pictures album, is just such a classic and one of my all-time favorites. So I hope that helps you guys to kind of work your way through it and be able to get it to a point where you can play it maybe more accurately, or at least with the right feel. So thanks so much, guys. Please let me know if you want me to do more videos like this and maybe suggest some solos that I can break down and analyze. I do have a lot more in this series before. I've done Sultans of Swing, I've done Cliffs of Dover, and a whole bunch of others that a lot of folks told me they really enjoyed. So let me know if you'd like to see me do more of these. Thanks so much for tuning in. Please subscribe to the channel and hit the little bell notification if you haven't already to get notified when I put new content out. Like the video, share it with anybody who you think would get use out of it. And I'll be back really soon with some more content. Thanks so much for tuning in. Ciao for now.